if China did pick Russia, which they haven't, and they went to war, it would be World War III. They said explicitly to us that they're not going to. But let's go to COVID.
Well, we should talk about the China relationship, actually.
Yeah, okay. Blinken just went to China, and this was the first trip for an American Secretary of State since 2018. Obviously, things have been strained with the spy balloon and the visits to Taiwan. Blinken gave some basic goals for this engagement with China, the fentanyl problem, some detained Americans, and protecting U.S. citizens working in China. Those were kind of the easy check boxes. But they wanted to create also an open line of communication between our militaries, which China wasn't super stoked on or wouldn't agree to.
Tony did a great job.
Yeah.
Okay. I think what's really disappointing is that while Tony's over there doing this hard work, which must be tough to do because it must have been a little bit like dancing on eggshells a little bit, right? He had to be...
It's intense, yeah.
He had to be very thoughtful, very measured. But as far as I could tell, he did a fabulous job. Now, full disclosure, he's a friend of mine, so maybe I'm biased. But then over here, Biden at some mid-level fundraiser in California is calling Xi a dictator. How hard must it be for you to try to do your job when your boss is just like completely undisciplined? And here's the problem with that, is that if the United States actually thought that Xi was a dictator, do you think that a mid-level fundraiser that we were all invited to in Northern California that none of us said yes to is the place to announce a foreign policy shift like that? Absolutely not. So it just means that, again, there's just more evidence about Biden being very undisciplined. Now, again, that could be an age issue. It could be a mental acuity issue. We don't know because we're not given a chance to really prosecute that problem. Meanwhile, Tony's there trying to do the best job he can, and the sands shift underneath him. Thank God he was able to get the trip done before this thing happened, is what I think. But that gaffe was a very big gaffe and a very big problem, I think, because whatever goodwill he built up was practically flushed down the toilet if you saw the reaction from the Chinese, which was to be deeply offended. And
it makes no sense to poke. Yeah.
When he went to see MBS and they had to negotiate a fist bump versus a handshake, like, what is all of this either unplanned or undisciplined theater? Why are we engaging in any of this stuff? It doesn't make any sense to
me. Joe Biden's always been known for being a liability in terms of these statements. When he worked for Obama and he was the VP, he also said things, he shot from the hip a lot. You should not be calling him a dictator when you're trying to do this critical work. It's a stupid move. I think everybody can agree. You were going to say something, Brad?
Yeah, I was just going to say, kind of market reaction going in. So the K-Web, the Chinese index, was up about 20% heading into these series of meetings. Now, notably, Blinken was not scheduled to have a meeting with Xi. And so what happened is on day one, there's a meeting with the foreign minister, right? And it seems that there was some positive trend lines coming out of these first two meetings with the top diplomat, with the foreign minister, which led to the meeting. And notably in the meeting, he did say, the United States has not changed its policy on Taiwan. We don't support Taiwanese independence. Now, the market reaction post-visit was down 10%. And I think this is owing to what Chamath said, that people felt like maybe we took a step forward here, that we at least had a meeting, but then it was another step back. And so I think where we sit at the moment is there probably going to be some follow-on meetings coming out of this. This was not, a path back to where we were, but I think it was a stabilizing moment. And, again, we were just at the East Meets West conference where there were a lot of Chinese CEOs and founders who were there. And I think the idea there was like things are stable, like not getting worse. And by the way, 6 months ago, there was a real concern that things were deteriorating quickly. So I think it's, you can see something constructive coming out of this.
Not getting worse was how I felt coming out of it. And then Biden then makes it worse. I agree. It's just a stupid gaffe.
Let me tell you about some of the reporting from the Chinese side. So after these diplomatic events, and you're right, Blinken met with Wang Yi for 7 hours. Then he got an audience with Xi Jinping. They do these readouts where each side basically produces a public summary of the meeting. In the Chinese readout, they said that U.S.-Chinese relationships are at the lowest point they've ever been. I mean, since, I guess, diplomatic relations were kind of reestablished under Nixon. So that from the Chinese standpoint, they believe that relationships are at the worst they've ever been. Moreover, the U.S. sought to put Ukraine on the agenda. The Chinese response to that was, we are not interested in discussing our relationship with Russia. That is none of your business. So this idea, there's been this neocon fantasy that somehow China would help us in this war between Russia and Ukraine. And I've said all along that the last thing China wants is for neocons to achieve their objectives with respect to Russia, because then China alone will be in the gun sights of U.S. hawks. So China will do what it has to do to support and even prop up Russia if they have to. Remember, China and Russia, and specifically Xi and Putin, they are the two leaders who've met with each other more often than any other leader. And they've called each other their best friends, or most, I think the language they used was most bosom.
Besties?
Well, most bosom friends was what they called it.
Okay, that's a little weird.
Bosom buddies, yeah. But yeah.
Bosom buddy, great TV show, good pull.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to give people exactly what happened, Biden, when he was at this campaign fundraiser in NorCal, that, again, yeah, we were probably invited to, people on the show, he was talking about the military Chinese spy balloon, and he said she got very upset, quote, that this was a great embarrassment for dictators when they don't know what happened. And he continued to say that she didn't know the balloon had been over the continental U.S. and was off course near Alaska. And this is the kind of thing where he's basically saying she is stupid, or, whatever, or there's some level of incompetence over there. It's exactly the wrong message you want to send, calling him a dictator and calling him stupid and saying he was embarrassed. Like, why would you provoke that to raise money or to be a tough guy? It makes no sense. I mean, it sounds like Trump's version of foreign relations.
From the Chinese standpoint, they thought the whole balloon thing was a travesty. I mean, I don't know what the truth of it is, but they feel like it was just this continuous drumming up of outrage on the American side against China. And they wanted to put that behind us in terms of the relationship. I heard Blinken interviewed about this. Chamath, I agree with you. I have no complaint with Blinken in terms of how he handled this meeting.
Tony did a great
I have a
job.
complaint about how he's handled Moscow, but not Beijing. But they wanted to put this balloon business behind them. My guess, I've always said that it never made sense to me that the Chinese would use such a ham-fisted way of conducting espionage to deliberately fly a balloon over the U.S.
It was obviously not deliberate.
It never made sense to me.
Yeah, it went off course.
And it became this cause celeb in the U.S., and I think the Chinese, at a minimum, wanted to put it behind us. And then Biden reopened the issue.
Like this submarine tragedy, the balloon is like made for network television because it's a live event where you can put live cameras up and you can cover it 24/7. It's just like Trump.
We better be really careful.
It's just for the media. It's for the media. It's catnip for them.
We have to be very careful now, I think, in our relationship with China, because, again, you now have this Asiatic alliance between China, Russia, and Iran. It is the most capable, let's say, adversary the United States has ever faced. Remember that when we faced the Soviet Union, their economy was never bigger than 1/3 of the U.S. economy, the Soviet bloc versus the Western bloc. The Chinese economy, on a purchasing power parity basis, is roughly the same size as the U.S., and they've got more manufacturing capacity. So if you think about the type of manufacturing capacity the United States had during World War II, that now belongs to China, not the U.S. We have hollowed out
I just don't
our
understand
manufacturing.